All right, and welcome in, everybody. Hope you're all having a fantastic, fantabulous, awesome freaking day. My name is Garrett Shoemake, and this is the Shoemake Take. And today, for the 2025 preview series, we fly back up north to a little town known as Green Bay, Wisconsin, where literally nothing exists other than the topic of today's video, the Packers, and how I think they're going to do in 2025. I'm going to be honest, I don't know if I have very much to say about the Green Bay Packers in 2025. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just like the Packers, to me, really haven't did all that much. They're pretty much the kind of the same team from last year. I still think they're going to be pretty good. They're really kind of in the same boat as they were last year. But there is plenty that they have to build on and plenty that they have to get better at. And quite frankly, considering that I have this team still in the same boat as last year, roughly, we got to have a discussion about how far can the Packers really go. Because realistically, the Packers have the ability to be a Super Bowl contender. I think they have the roster for it. They have the talent for it. But they need to figure out how to take that next step forward. So, with that being said, before we jump into the full discussion, if you guys know how this series works, you guys can go ahead and jump right into it. The timestamp is in the video description. But for those of you that don't know how this 2025 season preview series works, here is what we're breaking down. First and foremost, we're going to break down 2024, or recap 2024, if you will. Pretty much what was their record, what happened, and then we'll get into the season, talk about any notable news that each team went through. Then we'll look at free agency, who each team added, who they lost, who they drafted, break that down pick by pick. And then I'll kind of give you guys my thoughts on what I feel about each team. Are they going to be good? Are they going to be bad? Mid? What are some strengths and weaknesses they have on their roster? And then we'll break down each schedule, go game by game, look at some important stretches, look at the most important matchups, and then after that, we'll wrap everything up with an official record prediction and some storylines that I will be looking for to follow each team in 2025. Ooh, just give me a second. I don't know why, but I am kind of short of breath right now. So if you guys hear me kind of if you guys hear hear me breathe in a lot, I apologize. I don't know why. I kind of just sat down and all of a sudden now I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with me right now, but we're going to stick through it. We're fine. So let's recap 2024 to start this preview video. And last year, the Packers went 11-6, and they were an interesting bunch, quite frankly. Their defense, which was pretty bad in 2023, took a big step forward in 2024. They were a much better unit under defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley. And it was very impressive to see. They got some good talent in there, some young talent, which is exciting. But the offense did not take the step forward that people expected. 2023 was supposed, or 2024 was supposed to be the year that Jordan Love ascended. He was supposed to be the guy that, all right, he's got a good running game now. He's got good receivers. He needs to step up and become an elite quarterback. He got the big contract. So that's kind of like what people were expecting. And the offense, really, the passing game was very inconsistent. Jordan Love was not the best in his decision making. He was not very accurate at times, and there were some games where he was fantastic, but there were some other ones where he really was not that great at all. And thank goodness they had a strong running game. Josh Jacobs went nuts last year, and he really kept this offense afloat. And it wasn't just all Jordan Love. The receivers did disappoint. Jaden Reed was supposed to take that big next step forward as the true wide receiver one for this football team, and he didn't do that. He looked like at week 1 against Philly, he had over 100 yards and a touchdown, but really just could not be consistent. But overall, the team was still good. Like I said, they went 11-6, and they made the playoffs, and they faced Philly in the wild card round, and quite frankly, they weren't really in the game to begin with, but then injuries started piling on out of nowhere, and before you knew it, the Eagles had dropped a bunch of points on them. They were decimated, and at that point, it was all over. And now, we got a very interesting team to talk about. Even though I don't have much to say. Maybe I have more to say than I'm thinking. We'll have to see. We'll go down the script as it goes. But the biggest piece of news this offseason for the Packers actually happened a few days ago. As I'm recording this video, right tackle Zach Tom got a 4-year extension, $88 million up to $92 million, a $30 million signing bonus, most by a guard ever for that metric. Zach Tom, I haven't known a lot about Zach Tom, if I'm being honest. The Packers' offensive line is full of a bunch of guys that people don't really know, but they're all very solid players. Zach Tom is a very good right tackle. Looking at some of his advanced metrics, were very, very good last year. And so locking that guy down, fantastic for the Packers. They need good offensive linemen in order for everything to work. I mean, you need a good offensive lineman anyways, but to get that type of guy locked up into a 4-year deal for the long term, really, really good. I like that they did that. Zach Tom is a good player, and he most certainly deserves it. So who else? What else did they do in this offseason? Well, let's look at their free agency and look at where they added. Looking at the offensive side to start, and they only added 2 players on offense, McCole Hardman at wide receiver, and the big one, guard Aaron Banks. I can't remember if it was a 4-year or 5-year deal, but it was a pretty big contract, and a lot of people didn't like this move. Aaron Banks was kind of mid for the 49ers last year, and the one thing is the Packers are trying to get bigger up front. They're trying to get bigger guys on their offensive line, and he's over 300 pounds. He's like 6'3" or 6'4", so he fits the bill for what they're trying to do. So I can get it from that point of view, but there's no way around it. This is an overpay, in my opinion, but what else are you going to do? Sometimes if you want to get players that fit what you're trying to do, and you're trying to get free agents in here to help supplement your roster, there's going to be times where when guard, for example, was slim pickings, Will Fries had already been picked up by that point before the Packers could get to him. The Vikings got him first, and so you got to settle on someone else, and naturally with economics, as demand continues to be high and supply lessens, price goes up. So that's why they paid a lot for Aaron Banks. And then you look at the defensive side, which is highlighted by corner Nate Hobbs coming from the Las Vegas Raiders. I like Nate Hobbs. Very versatile, can play in the slot primarily, but can also line up outside in a pinch if needed. And even though he got hurt last year, was a solid corner. He's been one of the better parts of the Raiders defense over the past couple of years. And so getting a guy like that, very solid player, should not be a liability, will be very reliable. So that is good for the Packers, considering they lost Jair Alexander, which we'll talk more about in a second. They also added Isaiah Simmons, the linebacker, former Clemson guy, that played every single position on defense, just about. His career has not turned out as people thought it would, which is unfortunate, because I thought he'd be a superstar, given the versatility that he had. But overall, I mean, Isaiah Simmons is a good player. He's going to be a backup on the linebacking core, but he can line up in a lot of different spots. He can be used in a bunch of different ways. And so having a guy like that is also still pretty young in his late 20s, so not very old at all. Nice. I like it. And then a couple other guys like Cameron Young and Christian Welch to provide depth. So their free agency was highlighted by only a couple players. They're in a situation now where they really don't have a lot of money to spend. They have Jordan Love locked up under a big contract. They just signed Zach Tom, and they have a couple other players on big contracts. Kenny Clark is on a pretty big contract, I'm pretty sure, as well. They're our defensive tackle. So they need to be able to hit with their draft picks very well. But let's first talk about what they lost in free agency, because what they lost on the defensive side is a little bit more impactful than the offense. On the offensive side, they lost center Josh Myers. Fine. He's been there for a while. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong on that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's been there for a while. He's been okay. But they lost some backup players like Tyler Davis, Andre Dillard. That's where Andre Dillard was? Huh. Okay. And then A.J. Dillon. That sucks. I liked A.J. Dillon. He went to Philly. But that's unfortunate. Couldn't stay healthy most of the time. So I guess that stinks. But they do have Marshawn Lloyd coming back from injury, which I'm very excited for Marshawn Lloyd and what he can bring to this offense. And then you look at the defensive side. They lost TJ Slayton at defensive tackle. He was their big run stuffer in the middle, so that leaves a big gaping hole. But they drafted somebody in late on day 3 to fill in that void. And then they also lost Eric Stokes, who has not worked out. He's been a bust. And then Corey Ballantyne, Robert Rochelle, some backup corners. So they lost some depth, which stinks. But the big one, of course, right there is Jair Alexander. They tried to come up with a change of their contract. It was a contract issue. Couldn't get anything done, and so they cut him. Ends up going to the Baltimore Ravens, and so far in camp, he's been pretty fantastic for Baltimore. And so now the Packers cornerback group is going to be without their all-pro, who has been with them since 2018, so he's been there for a long time. This one really, really stinks. Because Jair Alexander, of course, not only was he an all-pro, was he great on the field? Yes. And he's done a lot for the community. He's a leader on that defense. The only thing is he's just been hurt. He's only played a handful of games over the past 2 years, has not been very available. And considering the contract that he was on, one of the highest paid corners in the NFL, Packers thought they needed a little bit more out of him. And the contract dispute happened. no other side was really willing to budge, couldn't come up with anything, and so they decided to release him. And the Packers working without Jair is going to stink because it's hard to replace all-pro production, obviously. But they have the pieces in place, though, to where I think this secondary is going to be mostly okay. Are they going to be as good? Is their ceiling as high? No, but I still think they're going to be an okay unit where they should not be bad at all. And so now let's talk about their draft. Because to me, their biggest weakness was probably edge rusher. And they didn't get one until the 4th round, as you look right there with Baron Sorrell, who we're going to talk about in just a moment. But with the 1st round pick, you see that? You see what that says right there? That says WR. That stands for wide receiver. They took a wide receiver in the 1st round for the first time in over 20 years. Wow. And it was Matthew Golden, the wide receiver out of the University of Texas. And personally, okay, a little bit of being too forward with that. Let's talk about it with some nuance. I like Matthew Golden as a wide receiver. Is his ceiling as high compared to like a Luther Burden or Emeka Egbuka? No. But compared to those other guys, I think he has a higher floor. He's a very polished player compared to the other receivers coming out of this draft class. Very good route runner. Obviously, he has his 4.2 speed. He's going to be the primary deep threat for Green Bay this year, I think. I don't think Christian Watson's that guy anymore. He just can't stay healthy consistently. So, Matthew Golden, really, really like. His speed is going to be an extra element to this offense that they really do need. And I really like it. I'm enthused about it. He's gotten rave reviews in camp so far. He is probably going to be the wide receiver 1, if not the wide receiver 2 in Green Bay this year to start. And also, he's versatile. He can line up in the X, he can line up as Z, he can line up in the slot. And he played a bunch of snaps at all 3 at Texas, caught a high volume of passes as well in each spot. So, very versatile, great speed, great deep ball tracking, all that good stuff, and also very polished compared to his other wide receiver peers in this draft class. So Matthew Golden should be pretty good. I'm expecting probably 50 to 60 catches, probably 800 yards, maybe 900 yards, and 7-8 touchdowns. That'll be a fair assessment for Matthew Golden as a rookie, and if they get that out of Matthew Golden, that would be fantastic. And then you look at their 2nd round pick, Anthony Belton. I think he came out of NC State, right? I could be wrong about that, but Anthony Belton, Rasheed Walker is the starting left tackle for the Packers, and he's on the last year of his contract, so maybe Anthony Belton's supposed to be that replacement. And going back to the Packers wanting to get bigger up front, he is 6'4" or 6'6" maybe. I can't remember the exact height, but he is 330 pounds. He is a massive human being. He is a people mover in the run game, which is why he was drafted, but he's improving as a pass blocker. His technique is slowly getting better, and that's a guy that the Packers and Brett Veach, no, not Brett Veach, oh my God, who is I think Budakest is the name of the GM for the Packers, but they seem to like him a lot. He's going to be a swing tackle probably to start his rookie year, and he's got the chance to be a starter later down the line if Rasheed Walker, they let him go in free agency. And they also have Jordan Morgan, but Jordan Morgan played a lot of right guard last year in the sparing time that he had on the field. So I think he's probably going to stay inside at guard. A lot of people thought that he'd transition into guard at the next level. So Anthony Belton is going to probably be the left tackle of the future for this team, a guy that's going to need some time to develop, but later down the line, probably next year in 2026, will be the starting left tackle, and there's plenty of upside to like about this guy. And then you look at Savion Williams, the wide receiver out of TCU in the 3rd round, and I have my reservations personally about TCU receivers. They tend to flop in the NFL, unfortunately. That's not me being a hater, that's just me being factual. But Savion Williams has a lot to like. Not only is he very, very fast, like Matthew Golden, he's also versatile in the sense that he has got really good rushing ability. He had numerous carries, a good number of rushing yards, and plenty of rushing touchdowns. I think he had the 2nd most rushing touchdowns in the nation for... I can't remember the stat, actually. I'm sorry. I'm not going to try and look it up right now. I don't have the time for it. Not that I don't have time for you guys. It's just I don't want to stop the show. So he does have a lot of rushing yards, a lot of rushing touchdowns, along with good receiving numbers at TCU. Also has some drop issues, like a former TCU receiver in Quentin Johnson over at the Chargers. Sorry to throw him shade, but that's true. He's got a lot of drops. And Savion Williams has a lot of upside, but I think he's going to be a good gadget player for the Green Bay Packers. I don't know what his high-end ceiling looks like. It seems to be very high, but I just don't know personally. I'm unsure about it. But what I am sure about is he's going to be a gadget player. You're going to see him used on jet sweeps, end arounds. You're going to see him get used in the screen game. You're going to see him get used in a lot of creative different ways, I think. And that's going to help add an element to the offense that the Packers really don't have. They need versatility. And now you get a guy like Savion Williams who can run the ball, who can catch the ball, and then Matthew Golden who can line up at every single spot at wide receiver. That is what you want. The Packers need more versatility. They needed a good infusion of youth there anyways, and spending 2 of their first 3 picks on wide receiver shows that they care, shows that they want to develop this offense, and the passing game needs to be better, so they get talented weapons that can do just that. And then we get to Barron Sorrell, the edge rusher. And Barron Sorrell, he is a big man. He is not only has he played edge rusher in college, he's also lined up as a 5 technique defensive end, so he has some versatility. And also his pressure rate has gotten better every single year of his college career, which you like to see. That improvement is very notable. But right now, he's still developing. He needs to develop a better pass rush plan, develop a little bit more tools. But this is a guy that maybe in a couple years could be something. And like I said, he's a developmental player, but he's got plenty of upside. I like the pick. I just wish they would have drafted edge rusher a little bit earlier. But considering that they needed to load up on this offense with talent a little bit more, I respect what they're doing. The defense was their strong suit. The offense was not. And so investing into the offense makes a lot of sense logically. So I get behind it. And then they drafted another edge rusher back in the 5th round with Colin Oliver. Colin Oliver is an interesting one because he goes against the grain of what the Packers are trying to do and get bigger up front. Because he is 6'2", 240 pounds. This guy has the size to be a off-ball linebacker. So how are they going to use him as an edge rusher? Apparently, Jeff Hafley said that he's going to be creative with them. He's going to have to be used in specific situations. Probably going to be a rotational pass rusher as a rookie, more than likely. Going to play on teams a lot, I think. He's got the right size and athleticism to be a good elite player on special teams, potentially. So that's where I'm going to look for him. Excuse me, but it's going to be interesting to see how they use him on the defensive side of the ball, because do they end up moving him to linebacker? Do they keep him on the edge? I'm not entirely sure what they're doing with him right now in camp, so Packers fans, let me know in the comments. But he's an intriguing player, and we'll have to see what he can do, but more than likely, probably just going to be a special teams demon throughout his career. Here's to hoping that that develops even more, though, of course. And then you get to the TJ Slaton replacement, Warren Brinson out of Georgia. Jeff Hafley and the Packers, they love drafting Georgia Bulldogs. They drafted plenty over the past few years. I think it's their 5th one in 3 years. And Warren Brinson, like I said, is going to be the interior run stuffer that replaces TJ Slaton. Didn't do a whole lot in pass rush, but that's fine because as a people mover, he's a good people mover. Great size, great athleticism for his position. He is exactly what the Packers need in a replacement for TJ Slaton, and so I expect him to be in the rotation on early passing downs to do just that. And then Michael Robinson, the corner out of Tulane, taken in the 7th round. Don't know a whole lot about Michael Robinson, if I'm being honest with you, but he has been in college for a while. I think he was a 1-year starter and then spent 4 years somewhere else before going to Tulane. But the Packers need depth at corner, and so they go out and get a guy, Micah Robinson. This is 3 straight years in a row that the Packers have taken a corner on day 3. I wish they would take one maybe a little bit higher to get some true blue-chip talent in here to replace Jair Alexander. But the cornerback position isn't a huge need for the Packers. They're pretty solid right now. So getting a guy here that's going to play teams, provide some depth, fine by me. And then John Williams in the 7th round, same thing. He was an offensive tackle for the Cincinnati Bearcats over the past couple years, started every game for him, but because of his size, he bodes better at the guard spot, so he's just going to be depth for the offensive line, which is fine. He fits the bill of wanting to get bigger up front as well, so it's not just your starters that you need to get bigger. You need the whole line to get bigger up front. It's a whole philosophical change that you're trying to do here, and so John Williams fits the bill for them. And overall, this draft class was pretty okay. I like it. Like I said, I wish they would have gone edge rusher a little bit earlier, but considering that their offense needed talent and that was the worst part of their team last year, they needed to get more consistent. So they get out and get 2 versatile pass catchers, get a big, strong offensive tackle in Anthony Belton. And so I can get behind it. I respect it. And then getting a couple edge rushers on day 3 that are developmental with some upside, fine. At least you're not completely neglecting the position. And then you get a couple dart throws in the back end with Michael Robinson and John Williams. And so, can I say the Packers are an improved football team? No. I'm not going to say that they're improved. Like I said, they're in the same spot as they are last year. They lost Jair Alexander, so the secondary is the only thing I would say is taking a significant punch to their overall play on the field. However, the Packers, I still think they're going to be good. They're going to be in a similar spot, like I said, as my script falls over. Whoops. And they're going to be tough to beat. They're going to be strong. The only thing is, can they take that next step forward? Like I said in the beginning of the show, they have the talent to become a Super Bowl contender. It's just, can they actually get there? They were close. They made it to the divisional round a couple years ago, and Jordan Love against San Francisco just threw the game at the end with a chance to win, but that was his first playoff action. They also beat up on the Cowboys the week prior in the wild card, and then this year, everyone got hurt against the Eagles, who ended up winning the Super Bowl. So, tough breaks, quite frankly. But here's an opportunity for them to get some more consistency built within their team, make another playoff run, maybe get a playoff win. That's all you really need. Because if they can just get the first win under the belt, okay, things can get moving. Things can get moving. The offense needs to be better. The defense needs to continue to be strong. They have everything in place. It just needs to come together. So, what are some things that we need to rely on, some strong suits for the Packers, in order for that to be happening, or to make that happen, if you will? Number 1 is running back. Josh Jacobs had an incredible year last year, was the engine, was the oil, whatever word you want to use for the offense, and was 3rd in the league in rushing yards. Fantastic year from Josh Jacobs. And then Marshawn Lloyd, who their 7th round pick out of USC, is coming back from injury, got hurt at the beginning of the year and was done, and that sucked because I really like Marshawn Lloyd. He's a very powerful, strong, physical runner, and so he fits for what the Packers are trying to do as a good backup for Josh Jacobs. I'm excited to see what he can do. He showed a lot of juice at USC, and I think he's going to be a really good complement back behind Josh Jacobs. And then tight end is another strong suit. I mean, Tucker Kraft, one of the better tight ends in the NFL. Luke Musgrave is a good backup. Their depth is overall pretty good, so there's nothing to complain about over here. And then defensive tackle is still good. You have Kenny Clark, obviously, and you have a couple other guys on the back end that are pretty good. If you give me a second, I can just pull up their depth chart and so I can talk about it a little bit more. I can do that now instantaneously if my tablet didn't want to just lag, so I apologize. But defensive tackle, like I said, they have Kenny Clark. He is a fantastic player, no qualms about him. And then the other guys, there we go. Jesus Christ, I'm so sorry. Devontae Wyatt, that's who I was thinking of. Devontae Wyatt is still there. Warren Brinson is going to be the run stuffer. So they're going to be good there. I don't think there's going to be issues at all. And then linebacker, man, I am excited about linebacker. Edgerrin Cooper going into year 2, showing the signs of flashes that he showed last year. Oh boy, I'm excited for this guy. And then Quay Walker is good. Isaiah McDuffie is pretty good. And like I said, they brought in Isaiah Simmons, which is good depth. And I really like the linebackers for the Green Bay Packers. They should continue to be very good this year. And then lastly, safety. Safety is another strong one. Obviously, Xavier McKinney, who was an all-pro last year, probably the best safety in the NFL, arguably. And then Evan Williams is still good. And then while he's technically, he can play nickel and safety, I'll also consider second-round pick Javon Bullard in that situation as well. Javon Bullard was okay last year, showed some good signs, but also was inconsistent, but really liked his tape coming out of Georgia a couple years ago. And so I'm expecting him to take a step forward. So the safety spot is also really good. And then you look at their weaknesses, and all they have is edge and wide receiver. Let me explain that one, because that's an interesting why I have it on the list. I just talked about how good Matthew Golden and how much I like him. So edge rusher, still a weakness on this team. Your 2 starters are Rashawn Gary and Lucas Van Ness. Rashawn Gary is fine, he's good, but Lucas Van Ness has just not lived up to his potential. And the third guy being Baron Sorrell, that's not great. Not right now, at least. But wide receiver is the more interesting position because Matthew Golden, like I said, his ceiling is probably a wide receiver too, but he's going to need to be more than that for the Packers. And their wide receivers, it's not that it's bad. It's not that the wide receivers are bad at all where it's going to be an issue. Not even close. So would you say, so what I say it's a weakness? No, not necessarily in that sense. But where is the high-end talent going to be? We still have the issue of who is going to be the definitive wide receiver one for the Green Bay Packers. Theoretically, it's going to be Matthew Golden. He was the first-round pick after all, but he's a rookie. Can you expect him to be that top dog at the start of his career? I don't know. We'll have to see about that. Jaden Reed was supposed to be that guy, but he showed that he probably wasn't that guy. And then Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, Savion Williams, I don't expect any of those guys to take on that role. So they don't have that wide receiver one still. We'll have to see with Matthew Golden. Maybe Jaden Reed does a couple things and it continues to grow. But there's really not a lot of high-end elite talent at wide receiver for the Packers, which is what they were missing. So Matthew Golden's going to have to step up in a big way. He's going to have to be a good contributor to start if the Packers are going to fix that problem. But right now, it's going to be good. The wide receivers, I'm saying, just not that great for right now. But they do have upside, so I will give them that. And then let's look at their schedule. Let's just jump right into it because this schedule is challenging. I only see 6 to 7 wins here that I would say are definite free wins. So they're going to have to fight hard. They're going to have to be competitive. They don't have a big margin for error in 2025. And week 1, you're at home against the Detroit Lions. That's a tough game to start week 1 against the Lions. That's probably going to be a loss, maybe. The Packers have a chance to split with the Lions this year. But considering how well the Lions played them, I don't know. I think Detroit, maybe they might get that win. We'll have to see it. But then week 2, at home against the Commanders on primetime on Thursday Night Football. That's a tough one. That's going to be a challenging game. But considering that you're at home, I think the Packers probably are going to be in a similar spot, maybe a little better. They're a little bit more well-rounded than the Commanders, potentially. That's going to be a close one. Maybe the Green Bay Packers win that. I think they start 1-1 to start. I don't think they start 2-0 or 0-2. I think those first 2 games they split. And then you get 2 wins. Week 3 on the road against Cleveland, and then week 4 on the road against Dallas on Sunday Night Football. Is that a guaranteed win for the Cowboys? No, because, obviously that's a rivalry that's historic. The Cowboys are going to try and be competitive in this game for sure, but the Packers are better. They win. And then week 5, you got a bye week. That sucks. I don't like early bye weeks at all. And then you come back week 6 to face the Cincinnati Bengals, and that'll be a good test for this defense going against Joe Burrow and going up against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And this will be a good chance for Jordan Love to see what he can really do against a defense that was not great last year. Got a new defensive coordinator. Is Jordan Love going to look good in this game? Because he needs to. And I think they end up winning that game. And then they go on the road to face the Arizona Cardinals, another rivalry that has some history behind it. But right now, the Packers are better. They have them winning that game. And then week 8 against the Steelers on the road on a primetime Sunday Night Football again. That's going to be a tough one to beat on the road. If they were at home, I'd probably give it to the Packers. But because the Steelers are at home, I think they win this game. And then week 9 against the Carolina Panthers. This one should be interesting. I think the Panthers are going to take a slight step forward this year and continue to grow. And so it'll be a good test for the Panthers to see how good they are against the Packers. But for the Packers, this should be a win that you shouldn't take lightly. This is not a free win. This is a team that probably could get one over on you if you underestimate them. So the Packers need to be vigilant, but I think they're better. I think they win. Then week 10 at home, you got a rematch against the Eagles on Monday Night Football. And I have the Eagles winning this game. I think the Eagles are still a better football team, even though they're at home. Philly's just too good, man. I don't know. I can't remember who I have beating the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not going to spoil their record. I'm not going to spoil it. Not right now. But they're going to be great. That's going to be a tough ask to beat the Eagles. I have them losing that game. And then week 11 on the road against the Giants. Packers are better. I think that's a win. And then at home against the Vikings, you're at home. I think they split this year, giving the Packers to win this game. So right now, you're looking at 1, 2, 3 losses here. And what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you're sitting at 8-3 right now, which very good. And then this final stretch is where things get tough. You have 4 divisional games out of the last 6. You got 2 against Chicago in week 14 and week 16. I think you guys split. So there's 1 win, 1 loss against Detroit. That's probably going to be a loss. I think the Lions sweep the Packers this year again. And then week 15 against the Broncos, that's going to be a fun one. The Broncos defense is going to be really good, I think, this year again. Their offense should take a small step forward, if not a big step forward, with Bo Nix in year 2. That's not an easy win. That's going to be a tough one. And then week 17 at home against Baltimore. I think Baltimore wins. And then you close out on the road against the Minnesota Vikings. I think the Vikings play a little spoiler and win the last game. And so while the Packers are going to start out hot, their first 12 games, I have them going 8-3, but I have them going potentially 2-4 in their last 6 games. Their last 6 games are really tough. They're really, really tough. And so there's what their most important matchups are going to be in that 6-game stretch. Obviously, the divisional opponents, never a gimme. And then you have the Ravens and the Broncos. That's just tough to start with. And then their first 2 games, the Lions and Commanders, that's going to help define their season. They're going against the Browns and the Cowboys. Those should be wins. So you'd like to see the Packers start off good at home against the Lions and Commanders to get their season off starting right. Then coming off their bye, the Bengals one is also important. The Steelers one is important. Philly is important. A lot of these games are going to mean a lot for the Packers this year, I think. And that's because, like I said, they don't have a lot of margin for error. They cannot afford to have a couple games that I would consider winnable in free wins, if you will, slip past them. Because if they do, the Packers are going to disappoint and maybe run the risk of not making the playoffs. So they need to be fighting. They need to be competitive. And I think they ultimately are competitive. I have them finishing second in the division right now, only behind, of course, the Detroit Lions. And I have them making the playoffs. So they're going to go back and get another crack at the Super Bowl. And my official record prediction for the Packers, same as last year, bam, 11-6. Like I said, the Packers are in a similar boat as they were last year. And so I don't expect that to really change. They're still going to be good. They're going to be competitive. And let's look at some storylines that I think are going to be important for the Packers. Because number one, we've talked about it. It's the consistency in the passing game. They just need, Jordan Love and these receivers just need to be better. Too many times last year, things were just not working right. And they had to really lean on their run game. It needs to be more balanced. And for Jordan Love to have the big contract that he got, he needs to play better. There is no more, oh, you are developing, you're still growing. Are you? Yes, but you got the big contract. It's now starting to play like you got paid a big contract. Jordan Love needs to be really good for the Packers. He needs to be. He was given the big contract because of it. And I'm sorry, Jordan Love at the time when he got the contract, got overpaid, really didn't do a whole lot in his year where I think it was 2022 or 2023 where he got it. And so Jordan Love needs to start living up to that contract and needs to play better. And so the passing game needs to improve. And then the offensive line is my second one. With the philosophy that they've changed to get better and bigger up front, drafting guys like Anthony Belton. You have Jordan Morgan coming back from injury, so you want to see him continue to play well. Zach Tom has a contract extension. I didn't even mention that left guard Elton Jenkins ended up moving to center, and then Aaron Banks obviously taking his place. I want to see this offensive line look more physical. They were trying to get more physical. They tried to get bigger, like I've said again and again. I keep on repeating myself. I'm sorry. So I expect this offensive line to improve. They better be good. They've invested a lot. And so there you go. They need to be better. They weren't bad last year. They were pretty good, actually. But given what happened in the wild card round, they need to be better. And the third one is, what are these corners going to be like without Jair Alexander? Because I think their floor is still pretty high. I don't think the secondary is going to be bad. Nate Hobbs is fine. He's good. Keyshawn Nixon is, he's okay. Like, he's serviceable at minimum. And then Corey Valentine, their former 7th-round pick, who's going to be their cornerback 1 this year, showed a lot of good signs. He was cornerback 2 last year behind Jair Alexander and played pretty well. So you're hoping that he takes a big step forward, shows some really good flashes in 2024. So you're wanting to see that take a step forward. But is their ceiling as high without Jair Alexander? No, but I don't think their floor is that much lower. So they're going to be fine. I think it's going to be okay. It's just, there's probably going to be a little bit more growing pains. You're going to see a little bit more things go over the top of this defense. But that's what Xavier McKinney's for. That is what Evan Williams and Javon Bullard is for. So they got the talent on the back end to be able to help and to help circumvent any issues that the Packers corners have. But like I said, it's not going to be a bad unit at all. And then number 4, continuing with the defense, is the overall progression of this unit. This defense took a big step forward in 2024, and I want them to continue to be good. They need to be, as this offense has new players in it. They're trying to work with a new offensive line, and the defense just needs to be better. Not that they were bad. Like I said, took a big step forward, but they need to continue progressing under Jeff Hafley. This defense, you're hoping, takes the next step forward into becoming an elite defense in 2025. They have the talent for it. They need another edge rusher, in my opinion, to really reach that. But they have enough to at least be a really good unit this year, and that's what I'm expecting out of the Green Bay Packers defense. And then number 5, the big question, how far does this team go? Because I have them going 11-6. That's good enough for a playoff spot. But I'll tell you this. If Jordan Love in this offense can get a little bit more consistent, take some pressure off of Josh Jacobs in this run game, and have a more balanced approach and balanced execution, the Packers are probably going to be Super Bowl contenders. Because the defense, I have no issues with this defense. The Packers offense is where it's really big for me. If the offense continues to be inconsistent, I don't know if they're going to make it past the divisional round. Maybe not even the wild card round, depending on the opponent that they face. So a lot of it really relies on the offense and relies on Jordan Love to step up and be better this year. He needs to be. He's getting paid like it. So I'm going to hold him to a high standard because of that. With that being said, the Packers are going to be in the playoffs. That's going to be good. Can this team be consistent? Can this offense and this passing game just develop like it needs to? That's all they need. If they can do that, this team can compete for a Super Bowl. They can do that. They have the talent. They have the players. They have the coaches. Everything is in place. They just need better offensive production. So with that being said, that is going to do it for me for this discussion. Like I said, I don't know how to put it. I guess I didn't have a whole lot to say about the Packers as much as I thought. Oh my God, I don't know, man. My brain is cooked right now. I am so sorry. I am tired. I had a long day at work and got a couple days off though. Gonna have a chance to write the rest of my Should Make Take scripts for the season preview series, get them all done and record them all next week. And that way, as content continues pulling out for you guys, I'll have a couple weeks to take off and recuperate for the 2025 season. But with that being said, I'm just going to end the show right here. That is going to do it for me today, guys. Hope you guys have made this discussion. Sorry that I have repeated myself a lot. Like I said, I didn't have a whole lot to talk about with the Packers, so I was kind of trying to extend it, and it kind of didn't really work out. But if you guys enjoyed the discussion and you made it this far, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe button. We're trying to reach 500 subscribers. We broke 170 a couple days ago. You guys are doing a great job. So please continue getting the word out and getting people to subscribe to the channel. Continue building the community that we are building here. And also, Packers fans, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the Packers are Super Bowl contenders this year? Do you think they are pretenders this year? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And lastly, make sure you guys share this video on social media, whether it's Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. Got a lot of content coming out here very soon on social media for everybody. And then also, make sure you guys check out every other video in the 2025 season preview series. The entire AFC is done. So if you or you are know someone who is a fan of an AFC team, tell them to go check out their video of their favorite team. I think those videos are fantastic. I really like them, and they're only going to get better from here. So that being said, that is going to do it for me today. Hope you guys have enjoyed, and as always, I will see you all next time.